Hey everyone, welcome back to the NPC dungeon for the second ever pixel art time lapse that I ever made. Like I said in the last one of these, I have 4 sprites that I made based on a tabletop RPG system that I just learned. I made a whole party of characters with just that I have experience making characters in that system. I gave them all sprites. As I said in the last video that I made for my time lapses, I wasn't super happy with the very first sprite of each one that I made, so I went ahead and remade each one of them. The last one was kind of a space daredevil pilot celebrity kind of character. This one's going to be very different. I went for kind of a more outlaw kind of vibe with this one. She is what is known in the universe of Lancer as a cosmopolitan, somebody who travels at sublight relativistic speeds pretty much for a living, and because relativity is weird, she ends up experiencing much less time than the world around her. She's in her mid-60s or so, though she's been around for 600 years of galactic time. In Lancer is called real time. As you can see, it kind of started with the same big eye approach I mentioned in the last video. If you saw it, if not, that's okay. I'll go ahead and leave a link if you want. I am very happy with the hat that I came up with. I'm using my similar approach that I mentioned before again, of kind of just blocking out the body. I don't use like a big silhouette kind of approach like people recommend. I just draw 2 lines and draw from there. I split it in half and kind of carved out there to build the jacket. I wanted to give her like a duster kind of style jacket. As I said, she's kind of an outlawish kind of character, so I want to lean very heavy into that. I also copied and pasted it. Whenever I'm going to make a change that will overlap over something I already drew or make a very big difference in the sprite, I like to go ahead and copy and paste it elsewhere so I can go ahead and change that on the new sprite. That way I have the original just in case I want to go back and undo what I did or see what it looked like before. I usually don't end up doing that. It's just something that psychologically feels good to me, I guess. But that's what I do. Anyway, I use the same line that I did before for the middle, kind of, for the legs. This sprite was initially supposed to be in 3/4 perspective, but I realized very early on that I was kind of subconsciously leaning toward a more front-facing kind of sprite. I guess her head just kind of turned to the side a little bit there. But I do the shoes and I want to give her these very like big Western style boots. I'm leading into the outlaw kind of front-facing thing by having the arms kind of spread to the sides as if she's like about to draw her revolver really quick. I don't get to actually draw the revolver in this smaller format, but I do fit in like a collar kind of behind the head a little bit. I gave her a little bit of like a face mask kind of thing there. I was thinking like a gas mask kind of look, but I just couldn't fit that in this small format. I am blocking in some shading before I actually finish it all. Usually I do all of my color first and then I start shading. I have the eyes kind of underneath the hat. I didn't show the whole eye. I changed a few colors there, and here's the finished product. And I'm not super unhappy with it. Without actually having a lot of sci-fi details, she does kind of look a little sci-fi. She looks like a robot almost. It's very rigid, which isn't what I was super going for, but I'm not upset about it. And you can see I already have the sprite that I made previously in the corner over there, just as reference, like I had the high elf before, reference for my previous sprite. This one's going to be 48 pixels tall, roughly somewhere in that range, and somewhere between 16 and 32 pixels wide. I'm adding in the face mask here. I have a line leading upside of the head to kind of give it like a mask-like appearance. I gave her like goggles to give her more of like a pilot-y kind of look. I was going to put the original hat on her again, but it was very small, obviously, so I just remade it here. I wanted to keep the same general approach where I kind of tuck some of the shading toward that right side of the hat, right from our perspective at least. I was going to add like a bit of a line of color across that top part, but it just wouldn't fit in it, so I just decided against. I just didn't like the way it looked either, really important thing. And interestingly, I did add the lines here. I think the reason why is because I wanted to give her a whole new shape. The original shape that I had was very blocky. For this sprite, I want to make sure I add those same collar flaps to the inside. I'm still not sure how I found room to fit those on the original sprite, but I wanted to do it here as well. I'm just kind of messing around with the general kind of silhouette approach of it here. This one definitely is in that 3/4 perspective. You can see the belt's kind of curving up a little bit. I have a very outline-based approach when I'm making pixel art, which ends up having some very artifacty kind of lines that you didn't originally want to be there in the beginning, and you kind of have to make decisions later on when you're actually shading it. So I might experiment with a different approach later on in the future, but for right now, this is what I'm keeping. I really play around with the boots a little bit here. I want to keep the same general like boot kind of look while making it like a bigger sprite form, but I had so much detail already in it that I didn't have too much room for it left over. I wanted to give her a very careless kind of like leaned back kind of look. She's been around for a while. She's seen some things. So I just had her kind of recline on her foot there. I did end up fitting the revolver in her side there. Doesn't really look like a revolver. It's more like holstered at this point, but you can kind of see it. Here's an example too of, if you see the hand I just drew of one pixel making all the difference, I want to make the whole hand like outstretched, like it's ready to grab at the holstered revolver there. But I just drew like a box and put one pixel, and now all of a sudden you have a balled up fist. It really is interesting to see, even in these larger sprite forms, how one pixel can make all the difference. And like I said before, working in smaller sprite forms really helped with that. You can see I did kind of jagged layers of shading against the arm to show where the sleeve kind of folds over. I added the highlight there. One thing that I'm learning to do now is not have the highlight just on one side. You can see it's kind of crossing over the belt buckle there, kind of show like the shape of it a little bit. And just because there's a very high level of detail here, I have to spend even more time focusing in on all of the individual levels of shading and highlights in the sprite originally. Like I said before, my light source that I usually pick is from like the top left kind of, but you can see I still have highlights on that shoe there, kind of on the right side. That's just reflections kind of coming back up. And once my shading is done, I finally go into my third stage of my workflow, I guess. Well, sorry, fourth stage, line work. Then I do my color, then I do shading and highlights. And now finally the outlines. For some of them, I keep a solid outline. For some of them, I change the outline. Those are some of the decisions I was talking about earlier, just so it reads better. I find I jump around a lot too when I'm doing these final run-throughs and touch-ups, just getting rid of all of the dark outlines, replacing them with different outlines. They don't even look like outlines at this point. They're just like larger versions of what they were before, I guess. And with all that being said, here's the final sprite. This one I'm happy with. I'm happy with how she turned out, happy with all the detail. She definitely looks like a rugged outlaw kind of pilot type. And next we have the very small sprite, like I said in the last video. You see the one on the right, sorry, the one on the left is the one that I made initially. I tried making one just kind of freehanding it. It didn't work out very well. I didn't show the whole process there because I didn't see the point in it. I didn't like how she turned out. So I took my sprite from the last video that I made and just kind of remodeled her into what this would look like. I made the jacket a little bit bigger there. I changed the collar a little bit just so it's kind of more outlaw, kind of hides her face a little bit more. I added the hat and I changed the shoes, the pose. And and there with the black outline, she's finally done. I find that broken up black outline gives a very like popping out effect, which wasn't intentional, but I'm happy with. And I want to remake her one more time. I'm happy so far with how this is turning out. You see one thing that I'm doing here, I am actually coloring in the face as I do it. Sometimes I'll do that just to have a good look of it. I have a very kind of laid back look here that suits the kind of foot, kind of stepping back, I guess, approach that I have. You can also see a little bit of spoilers there, other sprites that I made in the past for reference. And instead of having this one sprite by herself, I show her with all the others so that you can see the different versions of the sprite that I decided to make. I'm not super happy with the final one, but the big one and the small one are probably my favorites out of this entire bunch here. What are yours? Let me know in the comments. And that's it. I really hope that you enjoyed this video that I had, this second ever Sprite pixel art time lapse, I guess, that I made. If you want to see 2 of my previous videos, click the 2 that are appearing on your screen right about now. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe if you really liked it, and feel free to comment down below if you have any feedback or just want to say hi. I try to respond as often as I can. And yeah, until next time, let's draw something.